In Between. Episode 10. By AMAH'S. Immediately she entered the store, she began her search. After carrying out the locked box from where Pete kept it, since she didn't have the keys, the only option is to break it open. But her worries was that what if Pete returns and find the box broken, he will really be mad. But what other choice does she have except to break it? Veronica took hammer and began to break the lock. It didn't take long before the locks came off. She opened the box and began to search for anything that will give her clue on how to get to Pete's workplace or his whereabouts. She knows quite well that he works in a big pharmaceutical company located in another city, several kilometers away, which was very far from her. She needs the right address of the company or even the company's phone number. If she can even get any of his colleagues or even friends' number, that will be great. The man that stood as a best man on their wedding day 5 years ago had no real identity to hold on to. That was the first and last day she saw him. She haven't met any other Pete's friend, relatives or colleagues. Maybe it's high time to start meeting them all. According to Pete, it was work and home for him. He doesn't make friends and he kept official relationship with his colleagues. His only family was her and the kids, aside his only sister. Vero, you and the kids are my only family. And that's why I'm working so hard to make sure that everyday life feels comfortable and peaceful for you and the kids. Veronica remembered him saying that, and his words was very comforting and lovely to hear back then. She felt very important and the center of his world. She even wish he can keep saying that with every given opportunity, because hearing those words from him means the world to her. That was how she felt back then, but looking back now, she wished she had mount more pressure on him to know other private things if there was any. She won't be caught in this dilemma that she presently found herself in without a guide on what steps to take. The box was filled with receipts, some are even torn, while others are piled up in a rubber band. Several receipts filled the box, mostly backdated few years ago. None was recent year. There were about 4 cross-check, which either bounced or there was a mistake on it. That was the only explanation for still having few years ago check in the box. They were either cancelled and it was all in huge amount. None of the digits were small. 2 were in millions while others were in several thousands. The names were all the same. Jabril Elliott, and it does not ring a bell. Who is Jabril Elliott to Pete? She saw the same name in some of the signed receipts too. Pete had never mentioned such name before, and since the checks was from a different body of company that either deals in medical equipment or supplies, Veronica tossed it aside. She couldn't make any sense out of them. She was able to get the address and office number from the receipts. Veronica quickly copied it out. She did not stop her search until she saw a number that seemed similar to the old number that Pete wrote down and said it was his sister's. She flashed back to the time, after she pressurized him into giving her the number back then. He wrote it out in a piece of paper and left it on the dresser. She had double mind calling. After staring at the number, she dropped it back on the room dresser. She wanted to think over what exactly to say and how best to introduce herself before making the call. Pete engaged her into a sweet conversation that she totally forgot to make the call. Pete later cleared off the dresser, and that was how the number disappeared. Seeing a similar number on a similar paper made her happy. She was finally arriving at something meaningful. Her whole time spent in the storehouse was not uneven. She had achieved a whole lot, and knows how to begin her search from the information she gathered so far. Before Veronica left the storehouse, she checked several other boxes and lockers for more information. After she returned to the main house, she stared at everything she brought out. She did not know where to start. Veronica decided she will start the following day. By then she will be fully ready. Throughout that night she couldn't sleep well. God, I really need you. If everyone leaves, I know you won't abandon me in my mess. Please, bring my husband home. Let everything return back as it used to. I'm struggling with all the changes and I really don't know where to start from. I need you, Lord, please. Veronica prayed again, asking God to intervene in her situation. She tried calling Pete again the next day, but to no avail. That afternoon there was a knock on the door. Veronica's heart skipped as she thought it might be Pete. She had mixed feeling of joy and worries as she rushed down to check who it was. It was Jane, and she did not hide the disappointment on her face. Yes, can I help you? Veronica said while standing at the door. I owe you an apology, Vero. I overacted yesterday. I hold this grudge against you for long, and it was turning me into some wicked jealous friend. We had word banter and ended up saying things that we shouldn't have said. For old time's sake, and I'm sorry. I will help you in any way possible and won't hold any past wrongs against you. I promise. Veronica, after staring at her for some time, opened the door and she came in. She really needed someone seriously. Pete is missing. I mean, I haven't been able to reach him or know where exactly to go look for him. He haven't returned home or called for the past months. Is about 5 months now, Jane. I'm left with no money or anything to hang on to. I sold some of the things in my possession, including my jewelries, just to pay bills, but more are still piled up. When I sent you message that I needed to borrow money, I meant it. I'm totally drained, both emotionally and otherwise. Have you tried calling his workplace or his relatives? His colleagues or friends? At least one of them should have an idea of where he might be. Veronica sighed as she stood up to get the whole information she had been able to gather. Pete, according to him, does not keep friends. I don't have any of his colleagues' number, but I have his only sister's number and I haven't called her yet. Ever since I got married to Pete, I have never spoken to her and she never called too. Funny enough, I haven't even seen or heard Pete speaking to her. The whole thing is making me have double mind. This were all the information I gathered yesterday, Jane. Veronica showed Jane the papers. Jane moved closer and checked it out. Jane urged her to start by calling Pete's only sister. Veronica picked up her phone, dialed the number, and when it began to ring, she breathed deeply as she waits for the receiver. When the person picked up, she greeted and quickly introduced herself. Wrong number. I don't know who you're talking about. I don't have any brother or anyone by such name. I'm sorry. Is a wrong number. The receiver ended the call, leaving Veronica dumbfounded. The supposed sister does not know who she was talking about or ever heard of him. is a wrong number. Jane tapped her to stay calm and call his workplace. Veronica noticed that her airtime won't be enough for the next call. Jane quickly did airtime transfer to her phone. She picked up the receipt and called the number of the company. I'm Mrs. Johnson. My husband works in your company. He's in the marketing and distributing department. His name is Pete Johnson. I want to know if he's in the office please or when last he was at work. The receiver asked her to hold on. After some time the person said there was nobody with such name in their company and it was a wrong number. Veronica dropped the call more confused and shaken. She held the papers and phone in her hand, staring at it strangely. Jane collected the paper and began checking if there was another information that will link them to Pete. While Veronica's heart was beginning to race with speed at this moment. His company does not know anyone with such name. His supposed sister said she never had a brother and it was a wrong number. Something was wrong and she was not ready for any more shock.